This is Bengals Central Podcast, keeping you up to date on all the Bengals news. Brought to you by ProFootballCentral.com. And now, here are your hosts, Sean O'Donnell and Chris Rowling.
Welcome to the Bengals Central Podcast, found exclusively on the Pro Football Central Radio Network, and brought to you by Onnit.com, the company that delivers everything you need to thrive. I'm your host, Sean O'Donnell, and with me, as always, my co-host, Chris Rowling. Chris, even though this isn't exactly a hectic time of year for football happenings, we seem to have it today.
OTAs are in the books, and we have some news regarding some of your favorite Bengals players, both good and bad news. We also will be introducing our brand new mailbag segment where we answer your questions that you submitted via Twitter. Finally, we have two great interviews in store with Bengals running back BenJarvus, Green-Ellis, and defensive end Carlos Dunlap. Let's get right into it with the latest news from Bengals organized team activity. And really, one of the bigger news items coming out that probably, in my opinion, doesn't get enough attention is cornerback Adam Jones suffering an injury classified by Bengals.com as a calf tweak while he was defending a deep pass. And, you know, in my mind, a calf tweak is a very serious issue, especially considering his position of cornerback, which relies on such quick cuts at full speed and things of that nature. And the fact that it's the hammy and the calf are kind of what he struggled with in the past in terms of staying healthy. And he was actually saying in the news report that it's the first time he's been fully healthy after dealing with nagging neck and lower leg injuries over the past few years. The neck injury actually came from his time when he was in Dallas. And for me, Jones is one of the most important players on the Bengals defense going into the next season because you have Leon Hall and Dre Kirkpatrick in front of him. He's the slot guy, but, you know, there's nothing to say that Kirkpatrick's going to turn out well, especially in what amounts to his rookie season. So for me, Jones is a guy that could step into that number two corner role if he absolutely has to, like he did 2 years ago when Leon Hall went down. So to me, this is actually a very serious piece of news because it's something that could turn into a nagging injury, and there's not exactly a lot of depth at the cornerback position. So this is one I think folks should be paying attention to. What are your thoughts, Sean?
No, you're absolutely right, and this is something that I really think people should pay attention to. It's unfortunate news with Adam Jones because aside from Leon Hall, the incumbent number one cornerback, I really do believe that Adam Jones is the next most pivotal piece in the Bengals secondary or in their cornerback core at least. And for Jones to, you know, have this calf tweak, you know, one, as you pointed out, it's not good because it's been kind of a recurring thing throughout his career. And on the other hand, I get worried actually when the coach speak comes out and it's called something like a calf tweak, because to me that means it could be something a little more serious, and they just kind of aren't disclosing it right now. Just along the same regards as a couple days ago from Texans camp, it was released that Arian Foster had a hamstring strain, and you know for guys like that, for Jones and Foster, you know, that rely, like as you said, on cuts so frequently. You know, it's not good when you're hearing those words so early in the season because, yeah, it is something that can just continue to linger on. And the inexperience behind Jones is, you know, it's just very thin back there. You've got some good players in Kirkpatrick and Brandon Gee and Sean Prater, but none are proven whatsoever. So, you know, it gets a little bit iffy after that. So, you know, yeah, this is, as you said, this is definitely something that Bengals fans should be paying attention to as OTAs and the offseason move along. Next on the OTA agenda, let's talk about newly re-signed right tackle Andre Smith. Well, it turns out that Mr. Smith was absent from the first OTA session, and dare I say again. So, you know, Marvin Lewis was rather vague in his explanation, but he did reassure the media that it didn't have anything to do with Smith's conditioning. And there were some reports over the offseason before the draft that Smith had gained some weight that he wasn't looking like he was in tip-top form or anything like that. And, you know, it's kind of, speaking of reoccurring trends, I guess, with a player, Smith has struggled with conditioning. He's struggled with the nagging foot injury that he had a while ago. He's missed OTAs, and he's missed camp, you know, many times, you know, in his first, you know, handful of years in the league. And, you know, to have a newly signed contract on his hands and coming back with the Bengals, it could be a little worrisome that he's absent, even though Marvin Lewis, you know, reiterated that it didn't have anything to do. Chris, is this as worrisome to you as it seems to me?
You know, I'm kind of split on this one because Smith does have a serious issue, or has had serious issues in the past with conditioning and injuries as a result of said conditioning, and it's the reason, you know, there was a weight clause in his rookie contract. But at the same time, you know, Lewis isn't always exactly upfront with the media, but at the same time, I really don't think the front office, with as stingy as they've been in the past, would bring back this guy if he was, you know, seriously hurt or seriously out of shape. And I guess it could have been something that was delayed in the contract talks or something like that. But, you know, Smith has a pretty basic position and assignment within the offense, and missing some practices in shorts right now isn't a huge deal as long as it's not one of his recurring nagging issues that he's had in the past. That being said, you know, from the offense back to the defensive side of things here. So to me, this is a major nugget of news that's not getting enough attention because, you know, if Lamar is good enough to be an every down backer on this defense, you know, it's bad for Malaluga, but it's good for the rest of the team as a whole if the coaching staff judges it that way. So, you know, I know it's early, but what are your thoughts on this piece of information, Sean?
Yeah, I agree that it's a big deal. I really do, because this is now the second year in a row that Emmanuel Lamur has come out and has absolutely impressed the coaching staff right off the bat. He did the same thing last year. It's how he wound up making the team as an undrafted free agent. And, you know, and he's doing it again. He showed flashes during the season last year. So quite obviously, you know, this guy's a player. And obviously you're going to want your best guys on the field at all times. And I think Lamur is becoming one of those guys. It's kind of a consensus thing that Lamur's the best coverage backer that the Bengals have. And for how good Vontaze Burfict is at the will position, he's a natural middle linebacker. I mean, that guy is absolutely built to be a Mike. And if you can take Burfict and move him to the middle and keep Lamur on the weak side with Harrison on the strong side, I mean, everybody's playing to their strengths. I think those are the best three guys that you can put on the field at this point. And it just kind of makes me wonder if the coaching staff is feeling the same way right now about that situation. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on and, you know, continue to watch throughout the rest of OTAs and the training camp. So, you know, switching back now to the offensive side of the ball, we have one of the more controversial topics over the past couple of seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is referring to Andy Dalton's deep passes. Yes, of course, we're talking about OTAs, and Dalton is throwing the ball, so we have to talk about his deep throw because I think that's kind of a staple these days. So, first, before we get into the deep passes that Dalton's been throwing, there's one thing that I noticed about Dalton in OTAs this year, and we're actually kind of seeing a bulked-up version of Andy Dalton on the field over this past week. And, you know, he looks good. He's gained some solid muscle. He's bulked up over the off season, and you know, he's really looking the part. It looks like he's really committed to you know, to keeping himself in top shape throughout the off season, which is really, you know, really good news. It may not be something you get overly excited about. The extra bulk, obviously, you know, referring to the deep passes, isn't going to really be a huge benefit to him in that department. It's because it's obviously more of his footwork and his technique that, you know, that he needs to work on in that regard. But, you know, it's news, and for OTAs, it's, you know, it's a good thing to hear about Dalton. But the thing that people are talking about, and the thing maybe you want to get a little bit more excited over, is the amount of time that Dalton's been dedicating to the deep pass. he's really been working with Ken Zampese, James Urban, about, working with his wide receivers and, really getting on the same page and pushing that ball downfield. Dalton had pretty terrible statistics last year when it came to completing passes deep down the field. And, it was one of those major kind of hitches in the offense, which is why they kind of fell flat at times. So basically, what they've been working on over the offseason so far during OTAs is, they're quickening the time that Dalton drops back into the pocket, along with having him throw the ball a little bit higher on different throws with a little bit different trajectory. And they're really starting to see some improvements in Dalton's deep ball because of, these little things that they're tinkering with. And based on, some recent comments by former Bengal and former Bengal turned radio host Artrell Hawkins, he has said that in OTAs, I think it was on Tuesday, that he saw one of the best passes that Dalton has ever thrown. And I'm just going to actually quote Hawkins from his entry on his blog about what he had to say about this throw, because I think it was actually pretty cool what Hawkins wrote about it. And so, quoting Hawkins, on the Bengals' first play from scrimmage, it was offense versus defense. And quarterback Andy Dalton carried out a run fake to the offense's left side to running back BenJarvus Green-Ellis. Dalton settled in the pocket and then delivered a perfectly thrown backside post to a streaking Marvin Jones that, and I quote, would have made Tom Brady stand and salute. And this is why we love Artrell Hawkins. And he continues, if Marvin Jones were wearing his church clothes, Dalton would have dropped it directly into his left front shirt pocket. Marvin Jones never broke stride on the play pass, which covered approximately 60-plus yards and hung in the air for what could be best described as a football eternity. And that is what Artrell Hawkins had to say about this one particular play from Andy Dalton to Marvin Jones down the sideline. Now, Chris, this is some very nice praise from Artrell Hawkins here, who can be critical of other players at times. How much are you really reading into this? And obviously, they're just running around in shorts and stuff. But how much are you taking from this praise of Dalton and his deep passes thus far?
Well, I'll start by saying this. Dalton's never had a weak arm in terms of getting the ball down the field. His issue has been accuracy. The arm strength comments are really directed at his inability to make the quick strike throws to the maybe intermediate outside. This is good news that he's showing some accuracy, especially if that 60-plus yards wasn't an exaggeration. But at the same time, again, like you said, they're in shorts. The issue here for me is he's in an environment where he's not going to get hit in the pocket. And as we've said in the past, Dalton was at times horrific when it came to pocket presence last year. So this is good news, but he's not in the type of environment where he knows he's not going to take a hit. So I want to see in the preseason, I want to see this kind of completion. In the regular season, I need to see this kind of accuracy on the deep passes, when it matters. And because I think over time, I feel like we've all always kind of known that the arm strength was going to get there, proper coaching, proper trainers. He'd get that eventually. What you don't just get is proper pocket presence. So I need to see these passes in a serious situation before I take, quotes like this and analysis like this very seriously. And we'll find out soon because it's his third year, and that's a very critical area for him. Moving back to the defense here, there's another report of an injury to a cornerback. This time it's Leon Hall. He's missing some of the OTAs with a torn thumb ligament. Before you jump out of your seat, that sounds like a big deal. Anytime you hear the word tear, it does sound like a big deal, but in my mind, it's really nothing to worry about because, first of all, he can miss all the OTAs he wants, and he's not going to skip a beat. He missed half a season with a torn Achilles and didn't skip a beat, mostly. this is one of those injuries, had it occurred the day before a game, he'd tape it up and just go out there. I mean, he might have to catch some one-handed interceptions, but he'd be all right. So it's something to watch if it gets worse for some reason. But to me, this isn't a big deal at all. Sean, what are your thoughts on the torn thumb ligament?
Yeah, I'm right in the same boat with you that, it's not really a big deal. Word was that Leon Hall hurt it while he was lifting. And, yeah, like you said, this is a kind of injury that he could just, tape it up and just go right out and play on a Sunday with it. And, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. If he was going to hurt it, he hurt it at a great time during OTAs. Leon Hall is a veteran, and as you said, he won't miss a beat by missing these workouts. He should be ready to go, I'm assuming, by training camp or at the very least preseason. I'm imagining he'll be, fully healed by that point in time, and he'll be out there week one, and he'll be the same Leon Hall, we're hoping, as he was towards the end of last season when he finished off with 3 interceptions in the last 4 games of the year, including the postseason. So that will pretty much just about do it. That's all the latest and greatest from Bengals OTAs, all the news we have going on right now. An injury at this time. Chris, I believe we have one on the line right now.
Good.
Hey, we're doing great. We're doing great, BenJarvus. We're really excited to have you on here today. We got a lot to talk about. With the upcoming season, we have OTAs going on. The draft just took place. And, one thing that I wanted to kick us off with today is Chris and I were just, we were reading a little while ago an article on Bengals.com featuring yourself. You're welcoming the new rookies into the organization. And there was one quote that I read from that interview with you talking to Giovanni Bernard. And the quote, and I'll read the quote, it was, you're saying, see those lockers over there? All those guys are part of the firm. All those guys up front, Zeitler and Rowland and Robinson, Whitworth and Smith, all those guys, that's the way I look at things. For a running back, it all starts up front. A lot of things don't get done unless the guys up front are moving. That's the way it is with everything. Offense, defense, the game is won in the trenches. And that's an awesome quote, man. Like that's some great advice to give to a young guy coming into the league. And, there's, from the comment that you gave, there's 2 things that we kind of gathered from it, and I just kind of wanted to ask you a couple questions about it. First, it seems like you're kind of already taking on the role of a mentor to the rookies that are coming in. And, how do you think that you can best help them out as they enter the NFL?
Basically, the best thing I could do right now is just lead by example and not just be a person who talk about it, but be a person who be about it and does the right thing and does the right thing every day, day in and day out. Show them how to practice, how to go about your business in the weight room, how to be attentive in meetings and things like that. And then that's probably the best way to lead right now is just by example. That's
great, man. I've heard such great things from your days as a Patriot and your current days as a Bengal about your work ethic. So obviously you're a great guy that they can follow the example of. So that's great that you're taking on that role in the team. And also from that quote there, obviously it seems that you have absolutely just a huge amount of respect for your offensive line, and as a running back, rightfully so. And last season, as far as your performance went, you had a 1,000-yard year, and the second half of the season, it seemed that things really clicked, and you really started to get a roll going there. What do you attribute that success? Was it being able to gel with that offensive line at that point in the season?
It was just everyone being on the same page. In the beginning of the season, we weren't quite on the same page. We all missed some time here and there, and a couple of things here, and I missed some time during camp, and we came back, and the Baltimore game went okay, pretty well. We just, as far as running the ball was concerned, and after that, we kind of, it was back and forth. We threw the ball a couple games, and we weren't as efficient as we wanted to be as far as the run was concerned, and then we picked it up somewhere after right after the bye or whatever, right before the bye. we started picking it up, and we guys started gelling, and we started learning to work with each other, and that was just the thing. Football is a lot about chemistry, and we kind of developed that chemistry in the second half of the season. So hopefully, that can continue on to this year, and it won't take us as long to get going this year, and that we're there from day one.
BenJarvus, it seems that a lot of folks in the media are pegging you as the between the tackles back, which is fine because if I remember correctly, you led the NFL in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 conversions last season. And then they're pegging Giovanni Bernard as the flashy, change of pace guy who catches passes out of the backfield. Are these the roles you guys see yourselves taking, or is this kind of a impending timeshare? How do you see it playing out?
I really don't know how it's going to pan out. That's not really my job to kind of think about how things are going to pan out. I feel like we have a stable of good guys in the backfield. Myself, Giovanni. We haven't seen these guys in pads yet at a pro level, but we feel like these guys can come in and contribute. But we also feel that we have good guys in Boom Herron and Cedric Pierman and Bernard Scott and Rex Burkhead as well. So we have a good group of guys, and we all have to go in and we compete against each other every day on the practice field and make ourselves better. That way, when we go out there on Sundays or whatever it is that we go out there, that we putting the best product on the field.
And that's, I guess, as a team standpoint goes, that's such a valuable asset to have is such a deep backfield with so many talented running backs back there. You all obviously, like you said, push each other and make each other better. And two of those guys are obviously rookies this year in Giovanni Bernard and Rex Burkhead. And early on after the draft this year, you were tweeting out kind of your endorsements for the early round picks of the draft in Margus Hunt, Giovanni Bernard, Tyler Eifert, those types of guys. And many draftniks have now given the Bengals a really high grade in 2013. What were your thoughts on their entire draft class, and what draft grade would you give the Bengals for 2013?
Once again, I really don't get into all that draft grade stuff and things like that because the same people that say you don't have a draft class and then your draft class turn out good, you never find those type of people. So the only thing I say is that with our draft class is that our people upstairs know what they're doing. They've been doing a pretty good job of finding talent all over the draft, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, undrafted, wherever they've been finding talent all over the place. So I just keep my faith in the people upstairs that's doing the drafting and who's in the rooms and doing all the scouting and things like that because, they've been doing a good job. You look at our squad, I look at it from top to bottom in offense, defense, special teams, everything. And I just feel like, we have a very rich, talented group, on both sides of the ball and, even on special teams. So, and then all of those guys are found in different places, 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, undrafted, free agent, 6th round, 7th round. So I would say that for me to say a draft grade would just be putting down the front office and the job they've been doing over the years lately.
That's a great point, BenJarvus. It's great to hear some perspective from a player on the whole draft grades phenomenon. We always talk about additions the teams are making, but there's been a few key losses as well. The team actually lost Brian Leonard to free agency this offseason. And many consider the rookie Rex Burkhead to be almost a clone of that guy. But can you talk about what losing Brian Leonard and that stable of running backs means and how you think his void will be filled?
Well, Brian was our 3rd down guy, last year. He was our utility guy. He came in and he ran all the 3rd downs just about, and did most of the screens and things like that. So hopefully either we'll find someone else for that role or guys to step up. If it's myself, I have to play on 3rd down, whatever the case may be, that we all need to fulfill his shoes. His shoes aren't very small. He was playing on 3rd down, and, that's the money down in this league. It's the down that keeps the chains going, whether it's 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 5, whatever the case may be. It's the down that on both sides of the football, offense and defense, that either you want to get off the field if you're the defense, and if you're the offense, you want to get that 1st down and just kind of keep things going and get another set of plays. So, his role is very important, and we have big shoes to fill in what he did, so we can never minimize that. A guy who came in and did all the 3rd downs for us. So right now we all have a big have to take a big role and make sure that we're on point for 3rd downs and things like that.
That's a great point, and And, you know, speaking of, you know, the running game and keeping things stable, you know, just how we just kind of want to get your perspective on this, and how relieved were you when it was revealed that Andre Smith re-signed with the team just early on in the second round of the draft?
You know, I was excited, you know, to have Dre back. You know, obviously I always wanted him back here, you know, and I always felt that in my heart that he will be back here. But you know, in this business, you never know. You know, guys, things happen, and it is a business, and obviously you would have to make the best decision for him. But I'm happy that it was here. But you get a guy like Andre who can run block and who can pass block. You know, that's very rare, the way that he moves people out of the way, especially in the run game. You know, he's a big, large individual, and he's a grown man up front. You know, that's all you can say about that. You can just watch him move people out of the way, and you know, that's fun to watch, and it's fun to run behind and get to set up blocks behind him, and sometimes sit there and hide behind him. So, you know, I'm excited for him to be back. I'm excited for us to get to camp and get to working on things and get ready for the season.
Like you said, BenJarvus, that really speaks to how great the front office has been doing. Switching gears a little bit towards next season, the AFC North gets a lot of credit for being the most physical division in football. Now, I know you've played against these guys before you joined Cincinnati, but, you know, how difficult was the adjustment period for you last season, and what are you going to tell the young guys on the roster in regards to how to prepare for it?
It wasn't really an adjustment for me because, I mean, it seemed like every year when I was in New England, you know, we won our division, and we would always have to play the division winner of the AFC North, whether it be Pittsburgh or Baltimore or whoever it may be. And the year before that, we had the AFC North on our team. As so the last 3 years, I had been playing these guys because 3 years ago, the AFC North was on our schedule for our AFC teams. You know, we played everybody, Cincinnati and Cleveland and everyone. And then the next year, we played Pittsburgh and Baltimore. And then the last year, we played Pittsburgh when they won the division, and we wound up playing Baltimore in the AFC Championship. So it's just been like I never stopped playing them. So it just seemed like it just kept going on and on and on. It's just a division that I was pretty familiar with, just not seeing them 2 times a year, but once. But, you know, it was something that I was accustomed to doing, playing against those guys. And, you know, the competition level out there is very unique. You know, it's not like most other divisions where, you know, there's a big drop-off here and there. I think every team is on the rise, and every team is doing what it takes to win. And we are a physical division, and that's the way I think we want to play the football, and we want to continue to play.
And speaking of the New England Patriots, on a bit of more of a personal note for you, you get a chance to take on your old team for the first time when you guys welcome the Patriots to Paul Brown Stadium next season in Week 5. Can you talk a little bit about what that game means for you personally, and if you'll prepare any differently for it?
Well, I don't even think about Week 5. You know, the only thing on my mind right now is just going out, taking it day by day and getting ready for OTAs. And I believe our first game is Chicago, but right now, you know, that's the only thing on my mind. You know, we can't get to Week 5 without winning in Week 1. So, you know, that's the only thing on my mind right now is just to go and prepare for each and every game, and don't take anything off and prepare for someone else until that game is complete and finished. But right now, I'm just getting ready for the opening day, and I think our opening day is against Chicago, and I'm excited to go to camp and continue these OTAs. You know, there's a lot that we have to get done in between now and then. You know, there's a lot that we have to go through in between OTAs for us gelling with our plays and our timing on our routes and our spacing on our routes and going through our signals and making sure all of our, you know, hand things are down like that. So there's a lot of things that we have to do before we can even think about even getting to training camp. So right now, we just have to work on continuing to getting better and better every day right now before we can even think about going against another team.
You know, and that's a great point. You know, you definitely want to take it one day at a time. Make sure yourself and your teammates are all consistently getting better. You know, now that you're into the OTAs right now, and you're starting to work with the team, you know, what have you been doing personally, you know, to get yourself back into shape to help your team improve this season? What have you been doing over the off season to prepare yourself?
Well, you know, we've been back at it for about 5-6 weeks now. Back here in Cincinnati, running and lifting weights and getting in shape and things like that. So that's kind of been a thing, the focal point of what we've been doing is just building a core foundation of getting in shape and getting your win together for when we come back in training camp. You know, obviously that's always going to be difficult on your body, stressing your body out with the long practices and the long days. But we just right now just getting in great shape that we can and continue that over the summer and then things like that. But as of right now, just focusing on catching more footballs out of the jug machines and out of the backfield, and just some of the small things like that, and make sure we're in excellent condition and in shape, and just taking care of some of the knick-knack injury things that you had last year, cleaning all those things up, and that way when you're coming into camp, you're 100% and you're not still have any lingering issues or lingering injuries from the last season.
Well said. And from a question that was dealing with the absolute current time frame right now, I just want to ask you one more, and this question is obviously for way, way down the road, years from now. But, you seem to be taking on a leadership role in, just only your second year with the Cincinnati Bengals now. And, we've also heard about your great presence in the locker room, your strong work ethic, from your days with the Patriots and also currently with the Bengals. And you really seem to fully understand the game of football. Do you possibly see yourself taking up a coaching role maybe one of these days after your playing days are done?
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that far in advance as of yet. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Right now I'm just enjoying the game of football, and whatever comes with that comes with it. But I'm not sure about if I want to be a coach or not afterwards. You have to take your hat off to coaches. They spend a lot of time, sometimes 17, 18-hour days. So that's something that you would have to really be prepared, and your heart would have to be in to do, because, it's not like it's a day off ever. Those guys work extremely hard as well, preparing and getting ready for the next team and things like that. So that's something you would have to be all in, like I'm all into football. So I haven't thought that far out in advance yet.
Great perspective, BenJarvus. Why don't you go ahead and let Bengals fans know where they can find you on Twitter and other forms of media, if you got it.
Oh, yeah, they can always find me on Twitter at the law firm, BJGE. Anytime fans want to reach out and talk to me about anything, I'm always there to answer questions and interact and let them know how I feel and what's going on with me. And I just like to hear what's going on with those guys as well.
Great stuff, BenJarvus. We really just want to thank you for joining us today, man. We wish you the best of luck next season, and we'd love to have you on the show again at some point down the road if you're interested. All
right, man. You got my contact info.
All right, and yeah, we appreciate it very much, BenJarvus. Thanks once again for coming on the show. And everyone, that was BenJarvus Green-Ellis, Cincinnati Bengals running back here on Bengals Central. We're happy to have him on and wish him the best of luck. Again, that was BenJarvus Green-Ellis, otherwise known as the Law Firm, here on Bengals Central. Chris, he really had some great insight for the rookies as they head into camp this year. He seems like a really smart guy, and I do believe that he will have a major role in their development.
Yeah, Sean, this is a guy that's been getting a lot of slack, even from myself over this offseason. But, he's one of the best in the NFL at what he does in short yardage situations. But where he's really going to shine for this team and for this franchise moving forward is, you saw it in the interview, the leadership qualities he exhibits and how he can help these young guys adjust. To me, he's only in his second year with the team, and he's already up there with Whitworth and guys like that in terms of locker room presence. And, the fact that he's not bitter over losing carries to a guy like Gio Bernard, but instead is trying to help him learn, speaks to the transition in the culture of this franchise. So, to me, great guy, and hopefully he'll be on again. But man, he is going to play a much more important role on this team than people realize. With that being said, we have to transition away from our live interview now and finally introduce the moment you've all been waiting for, which is our new mailbag segment. Where we're going to answer your questions that you sent to us via Twitter. We dreamed up this idea in the first place because we created the show for the fans. So the last thing we want to do is be like most other media outlets and have zero interaction with you guys. This is a way for you to let us know when you guys want to hear about, your Bengals. After all, if it weren't for you guys tuning in each week, Bengals Central wouldn't exist. So please make sure you shoot us your questions and ideas each week, whether it's Bengals, general NFL, or even off-topic, because we're doing this for you guys, and we're here for you guys. So, Sean, with that being said, I'll hand over the first question to you.
That sounds great. Yeah, and as Chris said, please do contact us on Twitter at BengalsCentral. This mailbag segment should be a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to doing this every week. And just kind of a heads up here, this is actually the first time that Chris and I are looking at these questions in any kind of extent here. So you're going to get some answers as we kind of fly by the seat of our pants here. So this should be interesting. So let's see what we have first. The first one is from Man, spelled M-A-A-N, and his Twitter handle is, I just have to spell that out, at M-A-A-N-A-B-O-U-L-H-O-S-N. That was difficult. That might be the hardest thing I have to do during this mailbag segment, is spell that out. But anyway,
got a question?
It sounded like it may have been. So he's coming in with our first question of the segment here, and if you can remember what I just said, you can follow him on Twitter, I guess. All right. So Man's question is this: do you anticipate any contract extensions over the summer? And he highlights here Atkins, Dunlap, or Gresham. Well, there's one name that's already been thrown around lately. I believe NFL around the league was kind of throwing this idea around, as well as some other media outlets, and that would be Geno Atkins. Apparently, the Bengals are expected to get a pretty lucrative deal done with Mr. Atkins as soon as possible. I mean, obviously, it's up for debate, but I truly believe he's the best defensive tackle in the NFL at this point in time. He may not be the most well-known defensive tackle. You've got guys like Ndamukong Suh and Haloti Naga who are more household names than Geno Atkins. But this guy is an absolute workhorse, and after his 12.5 sack 2012, he's absolutely the real deal. And the Bengals have been very smart in how they manage their money lately, and it would be a very wise decision to pay this man a great deal of money to keep him in stripes for a long time, because he is absolutely a game changer on the defensive side of the ball. So, yes, I think you can expect a contract extension for Geno Atkins coming up in the soon-to-be near future, I would say. As far as Dunlap goes, I think Dunlap, you're going to wait another year until you see any kind of extension with him. He's got a little bit more to prove, plus there's the Michael Johnson factor in there, who's currently on the franchise tag. It's really kind of looking at which of these guys is going to come in and produce this year. If Johnson can get more consistent, if Dunlap especially can stay healthy, because he still has yet to play a full 16-game season. That one's kind of up in the air, so I don't think you're going to see any kind of a contract extension for him yet. I think you're going to wait till next offseason for that. And Gresham, same thing. They just brought Eifert in. We're going to see how Gresham responds to Eifert being around, or how well Eifert produces for the team, or what his potential looks like for the team before the Bengals make any kind of decision on whether to extend Gresham or not. So I think Atkins, yes, absolutely. You're looking at extension very soon. Dunlap, Gresham, I think we're looking more down the road for those guys. Chris, what's your thoughts there?
Well, if we're talking in the summer period here, I actually don't see any extensions for these guys. I think for Geno Atkins, you hit the nail on the head, as you like to say, and that, this guy is going to get paid, and there's no doubt about it. And hopefully the franchise the front office, I should say, isn't counting on a franchise tag for next year. But Atkins is going to get his money, but I think, what you just said is a big factor as to why he won't this summer before the season starts. The front office is still kind of known for being a little stingy with the money, and Atkins and his representatives are going to more than want to get paid like the best defensive tackle in the NFL. And I can't see, and I could be 100% wrong, and that's actually even better, but I don't see them coming to an agreement this preseason. I mean, the Bengals are known for taking their time with this kind of thing. And for me, it plays out all year, and it's actually one of the headlines we have to keep an eye on. As far as the other two guys go, I think Carlos Dunlap is actually going to get the Michael Johnson treatment with the franchise tag next offseason because he has yet to play a full 16-game season because he can't stay healthy. He has yet to take more snaps at that end position than the veteran Robert Gathers because he's still weak against the run. He has a career high of 9.5 sacks in a season, and he has the most ridiculous potential I've seen on a defensive end in a long time, but it really needs to all come together. So I don't think we're going to see an extension for him, possibly even next offseason, until he shows that he deserves to get paid. Like you said, there's the Michael Johnson factor there. So if Johnson, has a down year or something, they might extend them both, but I think Dunlap or Johnson is not going to be with the team in 2013, and I don't think Dunlap has justified getting an extension yet until he proves it on the field in 2013. Like you said with Gresham, the Tyler Eifert effect is there. Until Gresham can prove he can be a reliable target, he's not going to get an extension. So I can't see that this offseason. There's no justification for giving him a new contract. We saw in the playoff game last year when he was the focal point of the offense, he couldn't get done consistently. And for all we know, Eifert is able to. I don't necessarily think Eifert is Gresham's replacement per se, but there's no justification for giving him a new contract this offseason. That being said, after all the fun contract talk, our next question actually involves a future matchup with the New England Patriots in Week 5, and this one's coming from Gutter Snake. That's actually his Twitter handle, so give him a follow. He's a very talented writer. If Gronk is still sidelined in Week 5, how does Cincinnati stack up against New England? I'll be honest, it's not really going to make that big of a difference because, Sean, as you know, the Bengals have always had issues with opposing tight ends, and Aaron Hernandez isn't Gronk. That's Rob Gronkowski, for those of you out there who don't pay attention to the men in Boston. The Bengals have always struggled with tight ends, and I don't think there's going to be an exception to that this season, especially with a potentially rookie safety, the safety spot. Bengals aren't exactly the fastest in the linebacking corps right now, especially with the addition of James Harrison. So to me, I don't think that makes a huge difference. And, as a fan of the NFL game in general, I hope Gronk is healthy. But either way, I don't think this makes a huge deal with Tom Brady slinging the ball and Bill Belichick directing that offense. What are your thoughts on that, Sean?
Yeah, I'm with you on that in the terms of, it may not make that big of a difference. We talk about it all the time and how the Bengals' ineptitude, to cover tight ends, it's terrible. Tight ends, it almost doesn't matter who the tight end is. They just tend to rip the Bengals apart. And unfortunately for the Bengals, when they do play New England, New England has not one but two tremendous tight ends up there, and not only Gronk, but and Aaron Hernandez as well. And I think if just one of those guys is healthy, they're going to give the Bengals absolute fits. That being said, though, if both tight ends are healthy, that could also create even more fits for the Cincinnati Bengals, because even if you have a guy like Emmanuel Lemur out there to try to cover, and I say try, to cover one of these tight ends, you have another to contend with, and I really don't know who you're going to use there. My thought would initially be Leon Hall. You use him as the Bengals were using him in third down situations last year, where you slide him towards the inside and he takes on a tight end rather than a receiver. However, he's not the tallest cornerback, and these guys are kind of monstrous, and I kind of think that would turn out to be a little bit of a mismatch, even though Hall can, keep up with as far as speed goes. A jump ball of these guys with Brady's accuracy, I think, is kind of a death wish for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So, I think if Gronk is healthy, I'll say this: I think the scenario worsens for Cincinnati. However, if Gronk is sidelined, it's still a bad situation when you're going up against tight ends like that. And I hate to be such a downer about the situation with Cincinnati not being able to cover tight ends, but unfortunately, until I see a change and that they're able to do that, the situation looks bleak right there. So let's just go ahead and move along to the next one. Hopefully, maybe we can talk about something a little happier than the Bengals tight end coverage woes. It puts a bad feeling, ever since the whole Owen Daniels debacle, which is, I know, fresh in all of our memories. But let's talk about Chris Crocker, it looks like, coming up next, who is not currently a Bengal. This is from Ron /MLXFL Commish, and you can find his Twitter handle. He is at MLXFL. All right, so his question is, will Chris Crocker be there to start training camp? So, the first thing that comes to my mind here is the hesitance, or I guess reluctance to see Sean Williams, the third-round draft pick rookie, in there alongside Reggie Nelson as a starter, and with good reason. It's never really a good thing to have to throw a rookie, right into the fire, right away. And we still haven't seen enough of Sean Williams throughout OTAs or any of his workouts to really judge how far along he is in his developmental process, in making his transition to the NFL level. As far as Chris Crocker goes, will he be there to start training camp? No, I do not believe he will be there to start training camp. The Bengals have said a little while ago that they're really not looking to bring in any kind of a veteran, and I'm assuming that also means a veteran that was with them last season. I think that they're kind of putting their eggs in one basket with Sean Williams here. I really do. And I think that, they're kind of going to ride him, into week one of the regular season unless there's, some kind of a tragedy or major setback or something. But I really think it's his job to lose. And I also believe that Cincinnati, I think they believe that Chris Crocker will still be there sitting on his couch within the first couple of weeks of the regular season, just as he was last year. So if they need to call upon him to save the day early in the season, he'll be there. And if he does rejoin the team, I think it won't be until that time. Chris, what's your take on Chris Crocker here?
I don't think he'll be with the team at all in 2013. I think the team brought him on last year during the season to get Taylor Mays off the field and to help stabilize the cornerback situation, because really they could have bumped Nate Clemens over there and not signed Crocker had the corners been healthy. So to me, you got to look at the cornerback situation. It'll tell you something about the safety situation, because Leon Hall, Drake Kirkpatrick, and Adam Jones are healthy. You could always bump the veteran Terrence Newman in to help, replace Sean Williams if Williams can't hack it in coverage. So there's a Terrence Newman factor there, and I don't think Crocker will be needed. He'll be available, like you said, but I don't think he's anywhere close to being needed unless we start seeing injuries pop up here in the preseason. I don't know if Williams is exact. I'm sorry. I don't know if Newman is the guy you want at strong safety if worse comes to worse, but I think you're seeing a youthful renaissance here with the Bengals, and I think, like you said, they're going to ride Williams into the regular season and, potentially just put up with his coverage issues, because really that's the only way you're going to help him get better, is kind of throwing him to the fire. And if he's the weak point on that defense, that's not such a horrible thing, considering it should probably once again be a top 10 unit. Sticking with talk of the defense here and maybe some underperforming players, our next question actually deals with linebacker Ray Malaluga. And this one's from Justin Talby. You can find him at JTalby1. That's JTAULBEE1. And he asks, do you think Ray Malaluga can still perform well enough at middle linebacker to meet expectations? That's a no. The expectations for Malaluga have always been ridiculously high because the way he dropped, his pedigree at USC, he's never going to be able to meet expectations. I'll just throw that out there because, in my mind, he actually met expectations in his first couple of years as a strong side linebacker, and that doesn't get recognized at all. So middle linebacker next year, if he's even the starter, which I think there's a chance he's not, because of, like we touched on earlier, with Emmanuel emerging. That was a tough one. Maualuga, to me, I think he's shown in the way he interacts with the media and the way, how the fans and media talk about him mentally affect him. I don't think he has the mental wherewithal to meet expectations and to put the naysayers out of his mind and play up to the level he probably can play at. So for me, I don't think there's ever going to be a point in time when Maualuga meets expectations, especially next season. The fans have turned their attention from him to Burfitt, kind of like they did with Maualuga when he was drafted. And so for me, that ship has sailed. Performance-wise, I don't think he's going to get much better. I think we've seen what he has to offer in a middle linebacker capacity. He's more of a strong side linebacker. And until, he makes that move, if ever, I think he's not going to meet the statistical expectations either. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm right. I got to say this. There's only one word I could describe your answer with, and that's fabulous. That was a fabulous answer. If you guys may have listened to some of the earlier episodes, that's kind of an inside joke here on Bengals Central. But anyway, I really don't think I have too much to add to your answer there, to tell you the truth. Like you said, Maualuga will probably never meet his expectations because his expectations have always been so insanely high. And I do agree with you that his first couple of years at Sam, he was terrific on the strong side. I mean, well, maybe I wouldn't say terrific, but he was very, very good. He was very good, and I think had he been kept at that position, I think we would see a different linebacker than we do today. I just think he's better suited for that position over there, just for the way that he plays. I think he gets jammed up way too much in the middle. So, yeah, as far as if he can still perform well enough at the middle linebacker, the answer is no there, and I'm with you, Chris. I don't even know if he's going to start this year, to tell you the truth, because the Bengals do look like they've got some options at linebacker heading into the training camp here. But I will say this, having Ray Maualuga as a backup middle linebacker is not a bad situation. I got to tell you that. For as much as Bengals fans complain about him, and as much as admit as much as I complain about him as a starting middle linebacker, I think he could be one of the best backup middle linebackers you could possibly have in the league, especially for his familiarity with the system. Just plug him right in there. So if he happens to not make the starting lineup, I think you got a 2-year contract with a potentially terrific backup linebacker, and not just for the middle, but also for the strong side as well. So I think that's great, and it will add a lot of depth, and I think that's the best way that he'd probably be able to contribute to this team at this point. So let's keep it along the lines of the defense, and this next one is from the Zim Master. Zim Master, of course, pertaining to defensive coordinator Mike Zimmer. This is not his actual Twitter account, but this question is staged as though it was, and you can find the Zim Master at the Zim, that's ZIMM Master on Twitter, and it's a 2-part question here. So I'm just going to do each part individually and then pass it over to you, Chris. First part is, what team will most likely try to hire me next year as a head coach? And by me, I mean Mike Zimmer, not me. I will not be a head coach. I promise you this. And this is a difficult question, but I'm gonna take the cop-out answer here. I'm gonna say the New York Jets. I'm gonna go with the Jets because, and here's my reasoning here is Rex Ryan has himself a terrible situation in New York right now. That team is in turmoil. Everybody hates each other. Nobody wants Mark Sanchez to be their starting quarterback there. That team is just, I don't know if you could find a worse situation in the NFL right now. And aside from that, Rex Ryan, he's a bit of a quirky head coach. He can be a little off his rocker at time to time. And, one of the reasons I think some teams have kind of been looking away from Mike Zimmer is because of, he's a little rough around the edges. And I think teams might be a little scared about that when they interview him for head coaching positions. obviously the Jets are not afraid of a coach like that, and I still think the Jets are a defensive-minded team enough to bring a defensive-minded head coach along despite the growing popularity of offensive-minded head coaches. So I think the Jets are a great fit there. I think Zimmer's toughness, his personality, I think can really get that team back together and all in one piece again. So if I want to throw my 2 cents in there, yes, I would say it would be the Jets that would be the team to take on Mike Zimmer. And the second question is who will last longer in Cincinnati, Mike Zimmer or Ray Maluga? So that's actually a funny spin on this. Maluga, I think, Chris, he has what, a 2-year contract, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, 2-year contract. So we're looking at Maluga sticking around for the full duration of his 2-year contract, or Mike Zimmer sticking around for another 2 years. And obviously, I think we know what Bengals fans want the answer to be here. That goes without saying. And you know what? I'm gonna agree with them on this. I think Mike Zimmer actually stays in Cincinnati longer than Ray Maluga. Zimmer has probably the strongest case to be a head coach in the entire NFL right now. But I think just there's things that are working against him right now. For one, like that I mentioned before, he's a defensive-minded head coach, and the NFL is trending to the offensive side of things. Hence bringing in, I'm going to use Chicago for an example, and bringing in Mark Trestman. The guy's an offensive genius. And, they brought him in over other NFL-qualified candidates because of his ability to revamp that offense there in Chicago. So, and remind you, they got rid of a defensive-minded head coach to bring him in. So, it's just a trend that's happening in the NFL. Defensive coaches are really being overlooked for head coaching spots, no matter how good of a coach they are. And I think when you combine that with Zimmer being a little rough around the edges, I think, it would really take the right situation to move Mike Zimmer out of Cincinnati. So, assuming that Ray Maluga plays out his 2-year contract in Cincinnati, I think Zimmer will actually stick around longer. So, Chris, both of those questions to you, sir.
Well, as far as who may or may not hire Zimmer next season, I think you kind of stole my answer with the New York Jets, although I don't know if they'll want to go with a defensive-minded coach again after Rex Ryan. But I think he'd be a good fit there. It'd be a scheme change. We'd have to see if they'd really be interested in somebody like that. I think, there's a few other candidates. I know the Cleveland Browns just hired their new head coach, but with that organization and that front office and maybe a chance to land someone like Zimmer, I could see that realistically. Maybe somewhere like Tennessee or even Detroit. I mean, same scheme, depending on how they do. I think there's a lot of options out there if a team is willing to actually invest in a defensive-minded coach at this point, and really that just hasn't been the case. But to me, Detroit, New York, maybe Cleveland, depending on how crazy they get, we never know, are options that Zimmer could find open. But I don't know if he wants to leave because kind of, what you were saying about how he's rough around the edges, and I also think he has some kind of loyalty to Cincinnati. As far as who lasts longer in Cincinnati, this actually depends in my mind on how well the Bengals perform next season, especially if they make it back to the postseason, win a couple games, because typically I think that'll get him a lot more notoriety within the league once his team actually finds success. I think it's a crime that he isn't a head coach already. But, because, he's taken trash heaps of rosters and turned them into top 10 units. For me, it depends on how the team does. I'm actually going to go against what you said, though, and say Maluga's in Cincinnati longer because I don't think, even after his 2-year contract, I don't think he's going to find a lot of other places he can call home, just like he couldn't this offseason. The current coaching staff loves the guy, and I think that comes from Marvin Lewis all the way down. Whether we agree with that or not, they saw it fit to bring him back. He came back because no one else would take him. I think, if the Bengals do well in the next couple of, postseasons here, I think Zimmer's going to be gone, as he probably should have been 3 or 4 years ago. That's how I see it playing out. And finally, our final question actually continues more defensive talk here with Jason Markham, who is actually the managing editor over at StripeHype.com. You can find him at UK_fans on Twitter, so give him a follow. And he wants to know, should the Bengals implement more defensive packages, such as having one safety on the field and then putting in an extra defensive back or linebacker? I'm going to go ahead and say no, because what Mike Zimmer has been doing as of late, minus the tight end issue of sorts, has been working just fine. I think where we're going with this question is, he only wants one safety on the field, and Reggie Nelson in case Sean Williams as a rookie is exposed in coverage. But I don't think that's going to be necessary. First of all, I think Sean Williams is going to be just fine in run support. If they need to take him out in passing situations, they're going to continue to put extra DBs on the field anyway. And like I kind of hinted at earlier, if they need to put a guy like Terrence Newman at safety, so be it. I don't think implementing more packages is something that's absolutely necessary with this talent in place. And really, for all we know, Williams, over the course of the preseason, improves against the pass in coverage, and that kind of negates that need for an extra package anyway. Sean, what are your thoughts on extra defensive packages this preseason?
Yeah, I don't think that they need to implement more packages to add a certain personnel to the field, but I do think that they might be able to experiment a little bit more with maybe some zone blitz packages when you have Sean Williams on the field, because when you have Williams and Nelson both on the field, I'd like to. And we'll see how this plays out, but I'd like to compare them to last year's Ravens safeties of Bernard Pollard and Ed Reed. You had Reed, who's, he's a ball hawk. He can play center field very well, probably one of the best center fielders in the league. And then you have Bernard Pollard, who's a great tackle. He's a really physical guy, and he can play up on the line of scrimmage, and, he can get to the backfield and wreak some havoc back there. And that's kind of how I see Williams and Nelson coexisting together. And, I'd like to see maybe some zone blitz packages thrown in where you can bring Williams up into pressure the quarterback or to help with a run and then drop Nelson back to play center field back there. And, kind of experiment with that, kind of play the guys to their strengths. So, I think they could do a little bit more there maybe than they have been able to in the future, because in that regard of playing up in the box there, I think that Williams will probably end up being a nice, step in the right direction, or an improvement over the way Chris Crocker played the position last year. So yeah, that's what I think. Although for an extra DB or linebacker or anything like that on the field aside from the safety, I don't think that's necessary unless you're playing chess with your opponent and it fits the coverage for their offensive scheme. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got for the last Twitter mailbag question there.
We now have one of the most productive defensive players on the Cincinnati Bengals' 6th-ranked defense from 2012 on the line. This is it. This is Bengals Central's exclusive interview with defensive end Carlos Dunlap. Carlos, thanks so much for joining us here today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Carlos, we really appreciate having you on, and we've got so much great stuff to get into with you. But first we have something even more to talk about. It seems this year you're teaming up with Robert Quinn of the St. Louis Rams, and you're doing, which is your second annual, you're calling it your Twin Tower Football Camp, which will be on June 1st in Charleston, South Carolina, at your old high school. Carlos, what can you tell everyone that's listening about this event that's coming up?
Yeah, like you were saying, it's the second annual football camp. Last year I did it by myself, and Robert Quinn made an appearance. But this year we decided to do it in collaboration because we both played together and we didn't want to do two separate camps. So we just call it the Twin Tower Football Camp because a lot of fans when we were in high school used to call us the Twin Towers because we both play opposite each other, and basically just went with that. But yeah, I wanted to continue doing this, and this is something I want to do once a year, every year. for the kids, man. Just get back in the community and give back to the community, my hometown.
That's great, man. And that's absolutely classy of you and and Robert Quinn for doing that for the kids from where you guys grew up. That's very cool of you guys. And for those of you who are in the area, their old high school, it's Fort Dorchester High School. Did I say that right, Carlos? Fort Dorchester?
Yeah, it's Fort Dorchester High School, and it's right off of Ashley Phosphate. And the camp will be June 1st. We're going to start it's going to go from 8 to 1. It's really going to start at 9. It's really going to start at 9, but like early registration and stuff is going to be at 8. And basically, camp will run from 9 to 1. We'll have an hour for lunch, and I'll do signing, and I'll speak to the kids as well as the mayor of my city, because I'm very close friends with him, and my pastor from my church will speak as well. And then a few other special guests will speak.
Wow, that's great. It sounds like you've got a great day lined up. I'm sure you're going to have an amazing turnout, and everyone's going to enjoy themselves. So that's absolutely fantastic that you're doing that for your hometown. It's absolutely great.
My first camp, I had a great turnout, about 300 kids, and the mayor came out as well and opened it up, and my pastor was there as well, and it was a pretty great turnout. I had a great time, so I wanted to do it again, and this time I'm doing it more hands-on. The first time it was my first time, so this time I'm doing it more close personal, working hand-on with my high school coach, who's pretty much going to be running most of the football drills. I mean, obviously it's my camp, so it's going to be my camp, but he's going to be like the field general pretty much out there for me. And then I'm just going to move around, interact with all the kids, and try to get as many interactions with all the kids as I can, because obviously that's where the difference makes. I want to make that difference. I want to get to know, or at least interact with majority of the kids, because obviously I can't get to everyone, being 300 kids, but I would like to make the presence felt.
Absolutely, and I'm sure they'll feel your presence as much as an opposing offensive line in the NFL, Carlos.
I actually have one of the Pouncey's brothers coming as well as Michael Johnson and Lawrence Timmons. So I got a pretty good, decent lineup, and everybody's going to be making their rounds, and I'm sure some of the kids are fans of those guys as well. So it's going to be interesting. This is my first camp with this many special guests, so it's getting pretty big. I'm definitely excited about it, and looking forward to Saturday.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, we wish you the best of luck with that. We're sure it's going to be a huge success, and we know Charleston's going to love it. So that's absolutely fantastic. Speaking of football, and you having an effect on people playing football, let's move on to speaking about your NFL career here with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you happen to be in the rotation of one of the most dominant defensive lines in the entire NFL. Last season you missed the first 2 weeks, but during those 2 weeks the line got off to a little bit of a slow start. However, when you came back in Week 3 against Washington, the defensive line really clicked on all cylinders. They started firing, and all of a sudden, you guys were sack machines. You never looked back. Do you guys feel that you all feed off each other, and that's when you're all kind of in top form, when you're all able to get out there together?
Exactly. That's one of the things that we preach about, or coaches preach about, is getting to the front door healthy, because this camaraderie that we built and we just click. Like all of us hang out. Me, Gino, Mike, Robert, and Gilbert. All of us. We just came back yesterday from going to Pacers game together. We all rode out there together and went out and watched the Pacers and Heat game. We just do like small things like that to get together, get to know each other, and I feel like it shows on the field. Like you said, the first 2 games when I wasn't out there, I felt like there was something missing as well. That's why when I came back, I wanted to get that back going, and just get back on track because we knew the potential that we have, and obviously we want to top that this year and raise the bar. And I still have my grudge against Mike and Gino because they both were the top sack guys last year, and so I have to step my game up. And we don't hold that back at all. We speak about it very bluntly, like I just did.
You know, Carlos, that's great. Speaking of Geno Atkins and feeding off of each other, you know, what's it like playing like next to a guy like him who is widely hailed as the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the NFL?
Yeah, in my opinion, he is the best all around defensive tackle in the NFL right now because he's just as dominant versus the run as he is versus the pass. I feel like obviously playing with that guy makes it a lot easier on me because they can't always double team me, nor can they do that to Mike as well because Mike's coming out there. I think he finished with 12.5 or 11.5 sacks last year too. So they got to spread the wealth. I can't be the only guy getting double teamed anymore. So that's a great thing about that. It relieves the pressure. It allows everyone for us to eat, as we call it. We call it eating.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You know, I'm sure you guys will be doing plenty of that this coming season. You know, now that you guys are all back together on that same defensive line again. Now, over your first couple seasons, Carlos, you've had your fair share of struggles with injury. Early on. Is there anything that you've done specifically over this past off season now to kind of try to end that streak and get yourself through the full 16 game schedule?
Yeah, I've been doing everything possible, spending more time in the weight room, rehab, prehab. I'm putting more investment in my body, multiple massages a week, different angles of massages, stretching extra, all kind of different things. But you can't prevent the fluke football injuries like a concussion or like last year I got leg whipped in the knee. Like little small stuff like that just keeps happening. It's been a blessing that I haven't had any surgeries, and been able to get back out there and make an impact. That's all I can control is control what I can, and I've been putting every investment that I can back into myself. I've been around the vets, asking them what they do to stay healthy, and I've taken a lot of different things from a lot of different vets, and I've added that to my game. So I look forward to ideally having my best season this year.
That's a really good point, Carlos. Sometimes you just can't control these types of things. Switching gears here, one thing the Bengals front office did control is making sure it didn't lose fellow defensive end Robert Gathers. Can you talk a little bit about how Gathers has helped you throughout your career and the development, little things like that? And can you talk about what it meant to have a veteran like him back in the fold?
He's a pro's pro. He goes about everything the right way, does what they ask him, doesn't say much. He just goes about his work and gets it done. He figured out what they want done, and he just does it. Doesn't ask anything, doesn't say much about doing it, he just does it. So having a guy like that as your leader it trickles down the water faucet, as you can speak, over all the young guys, because that means behind him, maybe Michael Gilberry got the most years among, and Mike would only have 5, this being me and Gino's 4th. So among him, that's the only guy who has more field tape for the Bengals, at least, than anyone else on our team.
Speaking of, the young guys behind Robert Gathers, Carlos, in the second round of the draft this year, the Bengals selected Margus Hunt, the defensive end from SMU. Have you had a chance to speak with him yet? And, how kind of exciting is it that the Bengals front office has yet again brought another addition to this already stacked defensive line?
Yeah, I think everybody's over 6'2" right now except Gino. Margus is like 6'8", Mike's 6'7", and I'm 6'6" on a good day. So I feel like we've set a trend because they've seen how productive and we've been, and I guess that's the fault. Our coach is 6'5" as well. So hey, that might be setting the tone for what they're like right now, and I wouldn't change it either if it keeps working the way it is. And I would love to continue to play with these guys that we have on our line, and then you add a guy like Marcus Hunt, and hearing about what he's done and the impact he made in college, you welcome that type of guy with open arms. As long as he's not coming after my position. But any addition that we can add to our O-line, our D-line, we obviously welcome because we have a strong rotation. And with Marcus, we see that he has the potential to make it even stronger. And there's no telling what'll happen once Marcus gets it down and gets out there with us. So.
And with that being said, Carlos, I think the coaching staff in Cincinnati has done a great job over the years, so I have a feeling Marcus is going to turn out just fine. With that in mind, is there any coach in particular that has had a great effect on you and the way you play, whether it's technique, endurance, or the way you prepare for games?
I've had my share of coaches in my day. I think the first coach that had an impact on me would be Greg Madison, the guy who recruited me. Him and Coach Strong. Coach Strong is considered to me as like one of my strong mentors, one of my closest mentors from college, and pretty much one of the main reasons why I went to Florida. Him and Coach Greg Madison worked hand in hand my first year, and those are my two guys. Coach Madison was obviously the enforcer, and being the coach he is and the way that he goes about the game, him and Coach Strong in tandem, I feel like those two guys would come to name when you speak of a coach.
Also, as far as, the different coaches you've had and the development they've given you, obviously it's brought you just, such a long way. And now you're, entering the last year of your rookie deal with the Bengals. So you're basically, you're a full-blown NFL veteran right now. And, are you approaching this season any differently than you have in previous years?
Not really. Pretty much after that rookie year, you pretty much after year two, you're pretty much developing like a routine. Year three, you pretty much got a routine down. So I pretty much got the same routine that I did in year three. I've added a few more things and studying even more, studying with different ways. We actually had Green-Ellis. I spoke with him a few times for like a week, and he taught me a few things that he did. And, it's just I talked to a lot of vets and try to take bits and pieces of information from everybody and apply it to my own game and make it my own. So that's pretty much it.
Speaking of that expiring rookie contract, Carlos, it was reported that back in February, the Cincinnati front office approached your representatives about an extension. Are there any details about extension talks you can give us, or is that something your agent handles while you focus on the field?
Well, I personally haven't spoke to the Bengals about any extension, so I don't know. They've only contacted my agent, so that I've heard, and obviously my friends heard those same reports, and they came to me about it, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So however that gets out there, it's out there, and I wouldn't mind it. So, hey, it is what it is.
Good stuff, man. I'm sure they'd love to have you back past the 2013 season. Speaking of the 2013 season, very briefly here, is there any one team or offensive tackle you're looking forward to facing next season?
Let's see. Obviously the Baltimore and the Steelers because we hate them.
You can say what everyone else said and just say you want to beat up on Tom Brady.
Hey, I would like to get a piece of him as well because I haven't touched him yet. So that's obviously on my bucket list. There's a few teams out there that we have on the schedule that I haven't played against. So I feel like me following what I felt, I owe them a sack or two. So, hey, I need to touch their prized possession, which is their quarterbacks.
That's awesome, Carlos.
Obviously,
go ahead.
like you said, the Patriots, the Packers, and of course the Ravens and the Steelers are probably two big games that, first of all, point out and come to mind because the Tom Brady, and then the Packers and their quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I haven't touched either one of those guys, so those are two guys I definitely want to add to my sack list. So I gotta go get them.
So Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Joe Flacco, all these guys need to start to be looking out for Mr. Carlos Dunlap coming 2013. I think that's the message we're sending out here, right?
Yeah, I haven't touched those guys, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. The opportunity is.
I think the Bengals fans are looking forward to it as much as you are, Carlos.
Yeah, man.
Hey, listen, Carlos.
It's a big season. This is the toughest schedule I think I may have had since I've been here, and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like our team is ready, and this will be a true testament to our team. This will speak numbers for our season.
You're absolutely right, and you guys have been to the playoffs the past two seasons now, and you guys you're back and you're looking good, and everybody's getting healthy and the team has improved, and it's looking pretty much like you might be poised to get back there for a third straight year. What's your thoughts on that, Carlos? What do you guys need to do kind of as a team to get there for another year and win a game?
Showing up doesn't mean anything if you don't make any noise. I mean, it's a great sign for our program and the Bengals. Us getting there back to back two times back to back. That means they're definitely getting it turned around because the history shows that it hasn't been like that. It's been a while since they've done that, but we want to make some noise. We have a young team that came from a lot of competitive schools, and everybody's very passionate about winning. So we want to get past that first round and make a little bit more noise. We cracked that eggshell, now we want in.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're all looking forward, to you guys getting right back into it as well. And Carlos, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Bengals Central. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on here and talk some Bengals football with us today.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Once again, that was Bengals defensive end Carlos Dunlap, who is hosting his second annual Twin Tower football camp on June 1st in Charleston, South Carolina. It was an absolute pleasure having him on the show with us today, and hopefully he'll come back on soon. Appreciate it,
and if you're looking for any further details on my camp, you can look it up at carlosdunlapfootballcamp.com. It's on Facebook as well if you want to go through there, but there's an actual website which has more news, and we're going to try to keep it up to date as much as possible. I have a guy working with that as well.
That's great, and you have you're on Twitter, Carlos, as well. You want to tell everybody your Twitter handle in case for whatever reason they're not following you already?
Well, it's very simple. Carlos_Dunlap. You can follow me there or hit me up on there. I try to interact with my fans as much as I can. Obviously, can't reply to everything, but I try to interact with my fans. And I think my fans have vouched for me as one of the better responders out there. So hit me up on there, follow me, and that's all I got to say besides who they.
The following podcast is a part of the Pro Football Central Podcast Network. Check us out at ProFootballCentral.com.
Tonight is back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at. In the jungle, who they bringing it back to the jungle. And the game day, yeah, the jungle's back. Got the natty pack in the orange and black. We're stacked to the track, so I'm back behind long work, chugging down cases. And a can brewed in 88. Who they? Super Bowl, spirit of the icky shuffle. Feel it rumble through the king of the jungle. Thunderous roar, he will soar across the river to the Newport shore. From Fountain Square, the great American ballpark. Down at the banks above the riverfront graveyard, the all brown stadium, the Nat is awake, and then we're making a statement to the rest of the nation. Cincinnati's back in the orange and black. See the natty on the map, baby, tell me where you at.